Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you here. I don't know if you're able to hear a second presentation because it's now 1.5 hours. You're ready for that? Okay, I will try to keep short and I will try to adapt my presentation to that what has been said. To be honest, we work together since a lot of years and therefore we know each other very well. We know how to adapt to a presentation, and so don't wonder if I skip some of my slides because they have been touched before by Maria Vasilako. I think what I will show you very briefly, what is our approach as a company of the city of Vienna, which supports the city of Vienna and other cities in developing smart solutions in regarding urban development and city development. Very briefly, we are an organization of about 25 people who are working for the city of Vienna. We have 3 agendas. On the one hand, we are an urban think tank. That means all the ideas which are implemented by politicians need to be in some respect prepared by the departments of the city on the one hand, and as well by an observation of international developments in research and other cities. That means this is one of our tasks to support the city of Vienna in thinking beyond and help them to find new solutions, because not everything comes from Vienna itself. We have to compare and we have to look and to learn from other cities. That's very important for our development. We secondly are something like a consulting and service company. That means out of our research, out of our work with the city of Vienna, we can bring more ideas to the city of Vienna itself, but also we try to, in contact with other cities, to consult and to help them to be more smart or resilient or to develop in a dynamic way. The third thing is that coming out of these 2 activities, we are also a company of the city of Vienna who helps the city of Vienna to position in the international dialogue of urban development. And we do a lot of marketing for the city of Vienna together with other companies of the city of Vienna, for example, with the Vienna Tourist Board or together with the Vienna Business Agency, or last but not least, with all the departments of the city when they are going, for example, to other cities to present or on conferences, etc. We have 3 departments in our company. The one is the Smart City Agency, which is really focused on all the questions, how to communicate, how to spread information about smart city and how to support the city of Vienna. We have an energy center. The energy center is responsible for that. How do cities develop best in the sense of energy cost saving or producing energy by itself in the sense of waste incineration, as Maria Vasilako said before, or how to build houses which don't have energy consumption. The third department is Future Cities, which is responsible for the international survey. We are looking all the time what is running on in other cities, how do they develop, what kind of improvements do they have, what can we learn as Vienna from other cities. For example, we had before this meeting now we had a meeting with the NIA and we talked about Bangkok, and we looked at the kind of governance you have in Bangkok, and we can, for example, learn from the innovation districts, a system you have here in Bangkok which we don't have in Vienna, for example. And this is helpful to improve and be better and better, because we can't stop thinking about and improving. That's for the beginning. The next slides, I will give you a very brief overview about the smart city strategy of Vienna. Maria Vasilako has mentioned all, therefore I can skip this slide, because it's on quality of life, it's on resources, and it's on innovation. It's an umbrella strategy. That means this strategy is responsible for all other strategies which will be on sectorial level or on cross-cutting level, they all have to reach the same aims as the smart city strategy. That means the urban development plan of the city of Vienna for 2025 is made in regard to this smart city strategy, and it looks three most important aspects. On the one hand, we are there's no more, okay, no battery, no energy. I think this, number 3 is very important, and I think it's the same for you in Bangkok. We have administrative borders in the city of Vienna, but the development plays in the metropolitan area. It's not only in the city. The most important thing regarding, for example, mobility, or the biggest challenge in mobility is the commuters. We do have about 300,000 to 500,000 commuters every day into the city. That means job-related commuting, or for leisure or for shopping. And this is a big challenge for the mobility in Vienna. As Maria said before, we have now a share of 27 car users in the city itself, and 73% who are using bicycle, public transport, etc. The commuters have the total different relation. 73% are going by cars, and only 27 are coming by public transport. That means if we want to solve the solution, or if we want to keep Vienna smart, we have to find solutions in the region. We can't find it only in our own city. I will skip that. This is one example which I wanted to show. If we are talking that Vienna is one of the smartest cities in the world, or Vienna is the smart city in the world, as Mercer, for example, is saying since 9 years, you have different rankings, and be aware that it is not even the same in all the rankings. If you look there, we have a lot of other cities who are as well very well. If you look to smart government, the one thing is if you have a smart strategy, but the other thing is if you have a smart government. A smart city strategy to have does not mean that you automatically have a smart city government. And therefore you see New York is in some respect more advanced than, for example, Vienna. If you look to the strategy, then Vienna is in the first place, Chicago is in the second place, and Singapore is in the third place. That means you have a lot of different rankings which help you as a city to reflect, are we on the right way? What do we have to improve in the next years? That helps you a lot. It's not an absolute qualification, but it's a relative reflection for you and your citizens and the government itself. When we have been talking about the quality of life and that Vienna is a city of a high quality of life, it depends very much on the organizations, on the units and companies who provide this quality of life. And I will give you a very brief overview only. It's not all what is necessary for a smart city, but some aspects. For example, we do have some agencies which are owned by the city of Vienna who are responsible for business and jobs. On the one hand, we have the Vienna Business Agency. This is the agency which asks for settlement of international companies, of settlement of regional companies in Vienna, supports them in finding the right properties, etc., and the services. We have, for example, the Vienna Tourist Board, which is a big organization which coordinates and manages the whole entire visitors economy. That means from hotels to bus companies, etc. We have then, for example, the Vienna Science and Technology Fund, which is responsible to improve the cooperations between the city of Vienna and the universities, because the universities in Austria are on federal level. That means the city of Vienna doesn't have competencies at universities. So this fund is set up to cooperate with the universities. We have a lot of cooperations, for example, with the Technical University, which are responsible for urban development. We have a lot of cooperations in biotechnology or in life sciences. And we have, for example, the Vienna Employment and Promotion Fund, which is an organization which helps people who are jobless to come back into the labor market. I think that is important. It's one scheme Vienna has, but these organizations help the city of Vienna to leverage the economic development of the city and to give some security if there are problems. That it means it helps to be resilient. Most important is all the infrastructure, as Maria Vasilako has pointed out before. I think the biggest and the most important company is the Vienna Infrastructure Group, which is responsible for the energy supply and the energy grid in Vienna, which includes the public transport company, which is responsible for all the metros, for the tram lines and the buses. We also have car parks and funerals. I think if you look to the revenue, it's a big amount of money which is done by these companies and invested and turned over. We have secondly the Vienna Holding. For example, my company is part of the Vienna Holding. It's a holding of about 75 companies. It also includes theaters. It includes logistic companies. For example, the Vienna port is part of this holding. And it also is a machinery in some kind of thinking of employment. If you look, for example, to the Vienna Infrastructure Group, about 15,000 people are working there. That means it's also an economic factor in the city. What's most important, and we have heard before that there is one innovation district in Bangkok which is dedicated to the question of healthcare and hospitals. And for example, I said in the discussion before, we have there 10 hospitals. It's an association of the Vienna hospitals, and it's about 8,700 hospital beds. It's that what you have in your district. That means it shows the scale and the difference in the scale of Vienna and in Bangkok. We do also have a lot of things, and that's very important for quality of life. We do have public kindergartens. That means it allows parents to work and have the children in an educational system before they come to school. Maria has talked a lot about social and affordable housing as a precondition for high quality of life and smart city. I will give only some aspects here for the discussion. I think Maria mentioned that we don't have that much competitions at the moment regarding urban development. This is different if we talk about social and affordable housing. If companies want to build affordable and social housing and using subsidies of the city of Vienna or cheaper loans, they need to have competitions. And the competitions have 4 pillars the competitors have to fulfill if they want to build. On the one hand, social sustainability, as Maria said before. But it's also a question of architecture. It has to be a diverse architecture. It has to be an architecture which is well designed. It has to have a look in the future of the development of the city. You also have to look at the economy. We limit the costs of building such houses because if not, you are not allowed to do it. And you couldn't hold the prices if you don't limit, because it should be affordable. And you have to fulfill ecological standards. And only if you fulfill all these 4 criteria as a competitor, you have the chance to win. And I think that's important, and that's very necessary to have a smart development in this respect. these are all the places where in Vienna smart social and affordable housing is taking place at the moment. What I would mention only is, if you want to realize social housing policy, you have to have some ideas how you manage it and how you organize it and what's the political intention behind that. Vienna has the good situation that we have a great housing stock, a public housing stock. I will come to that later. We do have also individual and object-related subsidies. That's a twofold approach. I think it's helpful for the city of Vienna and the citizens as well. What's very important is that the city of Vienna is a public landowner. That means the city of Vienna has the chance to give cheaper than market prices land to the building associations, which keeps the costs lower. Here you see how for example, the legal conditions are in Vienna and what is the housing stock. We have about 23% social housing. We have non-profit housing. That means new constructions by non-profit organizations. And here, this 26% are private market rents, but they are limited rents because these are concerning houses which have been built before 1945. Other houses, this is the free market of condominiums, and this is the market of free market rented flats. This gives you an idea about how the housing market in Vienna looks like, and which is a condition for this quality of life in the city of Vienna. I will skip these. I only want to stay at this. If you look, for example, to the public financing of housing in Vienna, in the year 2025, it was about 533 million. And this is the division, this is individual subsidies, this is regarding new constructions. And I think what is very important also in respect to the situation in all other cities, and for example also in Bangkok, that Vienna invests a lot in subsidized renovation. What you see in all the videos or photos of Vienna is these nice old houses which are refurbished, which have nice colors, etc. But this only could take place because the city of Vienna invested a lot of money, in the sense that it gave cheap loans to private owners of the houses to refurbish their houses. The condition in this was that you are not allowed for 15 years to raise the rent. That means it avoids that you have segregation, that you get out the people of the houses because they were a little bit cheaper as the other ones, and so you can keep these people in the houses, and the owners of the houses are allowed after 15 years to raise the rents. And this leads to a solution where, if this house, for example, that's a social housing of the time of the 1920s, it has been refurbished by the city of Vienna, and it was before it was gray. Now it's not only colorful, it's also refurbished inside. That means all the infrastructures have been refurbished. That's very important. You see here, these are industrial objects, buildings. It has been the gasometers, the so-called gasometers, and you don't see it very well, but here inside they built different forms of housing. And that means you can reuse industrial buildings for different uses, and it helps to keep the city in the history and its legacy. I don't want to stay too long at that, but if you have to implement social housing and affordable housing, you need to have an organization which is doing that. The city of Vienna has this Wohnfonds Wien. It's a fund for housing and urban renewal. This fund is responsible for the whole management of subsidized housing in cooperation with different other organizations, but mostly, and that's important, with the limited profit housing associations. This is a very specific construction in Vienna, so they have to reinvest the profit into new housing. They are not allowed to make profit on their own and to give it to the shareholders. They have to reinvest it in social housing, which keeps some cycle of urban renewal as well as new constructions. This I only want to strive very briefly. As Maria said, if you have a smart city strategy, it is not only that you write a strategy and then you realize it. It's a question how you realize it and in which steps you do it. I think most important is to have a big vision and to have a very clear general objective, but then to be going step by step. If I do something with housing, I have to follow this way. If I do something with mobility, I have to go this way. If I want to be environmental successful, I have to combine maybe 3 or 4 of these questions. This is a scheme we have in Vienna. It is not for every city, but close to our conditions, our frameworks. It's a way how to organize and how to make livable a smart city strategy. The next slides I will skip. Okay. As we are in the city, I think Bangkok is at the 3rd rank of the number of visitors in the world. That means it's really a challenge every time. Vienna is also a very good known or well-known visitors or tourist city, but I think we will face some problems in the future because of the mass of tourism. You know it from Amsterdam, you know it from Venice, you know it from Paris or somewhere else. Tourism can be also a pity. It's not only a benefit for the cities, because you have all what Maria showed. If you remember these 2 street photos in one slide, it is the Rotenturmstraße. This is a street which comes from the Danube Canal to the St. Stephen's Cathedral. And the biggest problem in the last 2 years was that between the time from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., it was stuck full of tourists. Why? The rise of river cruising was very, very heavy in the last years. They will picked up all by buses, brought to the one end of the Rotenturmstraße, then they go to the St. Stephen's Cathedral and then go back. That means suddenly you have for half the day, you can't use the street because there are so many tourists. And I think that's a very important point, what we have to think about, how to position a city in the future. I will skip this because it's too much detailed. Until now, we have a tourism strategy, which is called Smart Global Premium, until the year 2025. Just now, the city of Vienna is working on a new tourism strategy, but we shifted from tourism to visitors economy. And I think this is one way how we can do a new kind of smart tourism in the future. I will say 2 claims are leading the whole process of the new orientation of the tourism industry in Vienna. On the one hand, we say our future doesn't lie in the quantity, it lies only in the quality of tourism. That means we may have to think about how to restrict tourism because it doesn't fit in very well with the whole situation in the city. If you look, for example, to the Vienna district, the first Vienna district, it is the center. It is during most of the year only for tourists and shopping, nothing else anymore. That may be okay, but not for an increasing number of tourists. That we have to think about how to make the city more attractive in different parts of the city for tourists. That means we want to be a premium tourist destination, and we want to stay cosmopolitan. That means it has a little bit to do with our political situation at the moment. As you know, in Europe at the moment, you have a far right wing development, which is quite different to that what Vienna is. And we have decided to stay cosmopolitan and to develop the city in this way. So we come to a very important point, what we have decided to make as a new objective for the city of Vienna in the visitors economy. We say we have to see visitors as urban drivers. We have different formats of visitors. We have congress visitors, we have business visitors, we have leisure visitors, we have culture visitors, etc., etc. I think it is important to use them to develop the city. For example, the museums in Vienna live because more than 70% are financed by tourists. In that sense, it means without the tourists, we wouldn't have these museums anymore because we can't finance it from the public sector. But on the other hand, we have to think now, okay, if there are so many tourists, how could we engage them because of their presence to develop new parts of the city? We are very centered regarding tourism. I think it's not very different to that what you have here in Bangkok, for example, or I was in Chiang Mai 3 days ago. You have it centered to some hotspots. That's it. You have to think how to develop also tourism in a smart way and how to use it to develop the city in itself. Meeting industry is another question. What we all say in tourism, you know, there are a lot of discussions to track the people every step they are doing and to know where they are and what's their needs. We say, okay, to know something is not bad. To know everything is not necessary. So we talk about civilized digitization. That means to use digital devices and opportunities in a very clear and thoughtful way. The other thing is that we are talking about integrating the sharing economy in tourism. As Maria said before, if you use a bicycle as a tourist, it's good to have the opportunity to share a bicycle. But it's also a question, for example, I don't know if Bangkok has this problem, but Airbnb, for example, is a problem in European cities because a lot of people rent out their flats for Airbnb for tourists, but it shortens the number of flats for the people who are living in the city. That means that's a problem. So we are saying we have to think about how to integrate sharing economy in its different facets into the whole development of the city. My last point is, if you have a smart city strategy, you also have to think about how to monitor the development of the city. Because it's not only the fact that you say, okay, we are running well, you have to bring evidence for that. And to bring evidence for that, the city of Vienna, once again, this picture, has set up a monitoring system which was invented 1.5 years ago. The smart city strategy has been set up in the year 2014, and now in 2017 we had the first monitoring of success or missuccess of the smart city strategy. I think what is important, if you look to innovation, quality of life, resources, these 3 pillars of the smart city strategy, they all have different target areas. If you are talking about quality of life, it's a question of healthcare, it's a question of environment, green and open spaces, it's about social inclusion, but it's also a question, is the waste and water management the right one? Because if you don't have a good waste and water management, you won't reach a high quality of life. That means the 3 dimensions are linked to a lot of target areas. And this is the system in which the city of Vienna thinks about how to monitor the success and the development of its smart city strategy. That means we have 11 target areas, and we have about 54 individual objectives which should be reached. That means for these 54 objectives, there are measurement criteria, and they tell you you're on a good way or you're on a bad way. And to give you only a short overview, this looks like that. You see the ones here, 2, where we have attained all the objectives we have set. There are some others where, for example, in e-mobility, the objective hasn't been reached until now. That means it asks for more engagement and for more investment. And that gives you, and we think to do it every 2 or 3 years, that gives you an overview how the development runs. But it can also be a comparison on international level. This, for example, shows you affordable housing. That means the percentage of your disposal household income. Vienna, people in Vienna use about 10% of their household income. If you look, for example, to London, it's about 36%. That means if you want to be a city of high quality of life, you also have to look how to keep it affordable. And therefore, it is that important to look at the development in the rental market or in the condominium market. That's very important. Well, that was my short outlook about how to manage smart cities. Thank you very much. Any questions or only the question for coffee?
Thank you for sharing all your great experience and lessons for us. I think they're all bright and shining experience. So wondering if you could share some of the kind of challenges that you have been encountered for the rest of the process with us. Thank you very much.
If you look to the smart city strategy, one of our objectives was to have a broad involvement of different stakeholders outside of the city administration. And I think in this respect we haven't been that successful until now. I think it's very well settled and established in the city administration at the moment. But if we look to the external partners, for example, big companies or citizens or universities or schools, at this stage I think we are at the beginning and we are not that much advanced as we wanted to be. I think this is one of the big challenges. And other challenge is to really develop a horizontal engagement. We do have, as most of the cities and the provinces, we do have a sectorial system and a vertical organization of administration. How to overcome these barriers, not only in projects, but in daily work. And that means that you have to rethink the whole organization of a city administration and to reshape it. And that's really a tough kind of work. At the moment, I think we have the solution that we look, how could we overcome without too much organizational changes, a cooperation, a horizontal cooperation. I think it's the better way than to say we have to change the whole administration because this will take 5, 10, 12, 15 years, I don't know. And the development runs and the future runs away in the meantime. So I think it's helpful to think about how to find intermediate formats of cooperation and workflows to implement this idea of smart city development above all the departments and all the companies who are working together with the city of Vienna. Because Maria Vasilescu may decide on different developments in the quarters, but to make it really smart and to establish it and implement it as a smart city quarter, she needs to have the partners, for example, from the public transport. They are not in her competence. They are in the competence of another city councillor. That means you have to overcome all these barriers. And I think from an abstract point of view, you may say, we haven't reached the aims we need to have. But we are on the way to do that. Behind you, there is a question.
Okay.
No, thank you.
You can't see each other.
Okay. So, how do your company collaborate with mayor of Vienna? Do you are part of the strategy planner or the data collector analysis?
We, as we are a company of the city of Vienna, 100% owned by the city of Vienna, but we are commercially organized. That means we are a company, a commercial company, but the owner of the company is the city of Vienna. It is the same as, for example, the public transport company or other companies like the Vienna Business Agency. They are owned by the city of Vienna, but they are commercially independent. I think that's a very important aspect, because if you're outside of the administration, you have a little bit more flexibility to cooperate with different partners. If you're part of the administration, you have to follow the regulations of the administrational organization. That makes a difference, and therefore a company outside of the city administration maybe is quicker in some respect, can act more freely. That's our advantage we have. The cooperation with the city of Vienna is, we do have framework contracts with the city of Vienna. That means we have a 5-year contract, for example, with Maria Vasilescu's resort, and we define what projects, what activities will we do in cooperation with her or with partners from outside the administration. We have 3 or 4 of these contracts. The other things is that, for example, we do some European Union-funded projects, or we do commercial consulting in other cities or with other partners. That means it's a mixed structure of financing. The cooperation with the city, as we are a city-owned organization and company, it is clear that we, to make it very, very clear, we don't act against the mayor. It wouldn't be very helpful, or against Maria Vasilescu, but I think what we do have a high level of freedom, looking at different developments in different parts of the world. We are not that closely bound to political regulations, and that's helpful, I think, and that helps you to bring some more innovations in, because not every day somebody from the media asks us, okay, why do you do that? If Maria does something with a street, on the next day you have the media and they ask, hey, what are you doing crazy here? That doesn't happen to us. And that makes it possible that we support politicians and administration on a different level with their work, not in this public observatory, if you may say.
Yes. Do you have a social enterprise company in Austria, and how do they work? Do they work in the urban development?
We do have social enterprises on different scales, but it is a new kind of development. It's not not of that routine in Vienna, because if you look to social um, for example, to all the social services, we do have it in companies, and social enterprises are developing slowly. Or am I wrong at the moment? No. I don't have experiences with social enterprises, so I maybe can't give you the best answer to that question.
Thank you. I have to. I want to know more in details about two topics. The first one is about monitoring. You mentioned that there are 50-something indicators, and to my understanding, that you can obtain many of the indicators from other governmental agencies. But my question is, how many indicators do you create by yourself that come from originally from your organization? So as an urban think tank, I want to know in details about how do you collect the data and what methodology do you use? And most importantly, how much resources do you commit to monitoring in general?
I have to clarify in this question some points. We are not the ones who collect the data. The data are collected by the different departments of the city of Vienna, by the different companies. For example, the energy company supports the monitoring with energy data. Public transport company supports the city of Vienna with public transport data. We are the ones who collect. We don't collect. We organize the process of setting up and implementing this monitoring process, because you have to work crossing the different departments. And that's easier from outside to do it together with the different departments, so that we use their data they have synthesized, because we don't make the real ground data work. They have synthesized the data, and then we try, for example, to manage the discussion about this, as well as to synthesize a final report for that, to make it possible for politicians to read it and to adopt it. That's our job in this regard. But the original data come from the different departments and the companies.
Thank you. So my second question is about the design competition, housing developer competition. Just wondering, how many judges do you are there, and how long is the process? And I wonder if there's been any rejection or protest to the decision that the board has made. Thank you.
If you ask the number of the judges, it's a number of, I think it's about 7 or 8. Involved is, for example, the planning director. Involved is the CEO of the company, of the fund, of the funding fund. It's 2 or 3 architects, which are responsible for 2 or 3 years. Then they will be changed. The technical university, for example, is also part of this jury, and for sure there are projects which are rejected, and the ones who have been rejected are not very happy with this. But then, for example, sometime if it's very clear why they are rejected, it's not a problem, because then you have a winner, and it's easy to argue that. If it's critical, then you have to go to some negotiations and to think about, was the decision of the jury really well done, or has there been a mistake? Normally, the process when you make the call for the competition to the decision takes about 6 months. I have in mind. It's about two months where the people or the companies can make a tender for that. Then you have the evaluation of the projects, and then you have the decision taking. Is it right? Or
assist you? Okay. Well, as a matter of fact, the thing is, Vienna is a relatively small city, right? And so there is, let's say, not exactly an unlimited number of corporations that will do public housing. So in a sense, things are a little bit more relaxed, because if they don't win this competition, then they will most probably win the next one. There are several, okay, throughout the year, and everybody knows that we will keep constructing social housing. So sometimes there will be longer processes in order to take the definite decision, but normally it's not so much of a big issue, because, well, yeah, there's the next chance. Okay. Oh, and maybe I thought there is two things I wanted to point out, you know, listening to the discussion and your questions and your answers. First, I think when it comes to social entrepreneurship, the difference between Vienna and maybe other European cities is that we have engaged into social entrepreneurship historically very early. So in many cases we have it highly developed, but we do not recognize it as social entrepreneurship anymore. Why? Because in most cases it has been different types of associations, communities and corporations who have engaged into social entrepreneurship, and I will explain in a second. And it's not so much private companies that have done it. And it's so much part of our overall governance system in terms of organizing services that once again we tend to forget that it is actually social entrepreneurship. So, what are examples for this? Well, let's start with kindergarten. Kindergarten is in Vienna for free. We took the decision about 10 years ago that, and a little bit long, 10 to 15 years ago anyway, that we want kindergarten for free. Every kindergarten, also private kindergarten and public kindergarten. But how do you do this? About half of the children in Vienna go to public kindergartens, the other half go to privately organized kindergartens. Some of them are commercial, but most of the privately organized kindergartens are kindergartens organized by parents' associations. This is a classical example of social entrepreneurship. These kindergartens are allowed to even make a profit. And in many cases, it was parents' groups that came together, organized the kindergarten, then connected to other parents' groups. So we now have a few very large kindergarten associations that are actually private. Okay? Then we have some very, very small kindergartens that are still run by one parents' group. Then we have private kindergartens that are quite expensive and offer, I don't know, horseback riding, okay? And then we have public kindergartens. What the city said was, you will be subsidized, okay? And you have to offer all basic education that is within the kindergarten program for free. If you offer horseback riding, you might charge for this extra. But whatever kindergarten means, regardless if you're public or if you're private, or if you're a parents group, whatever this is, it has to be for free. And we control quality, but we subsidize. And this way, it has worked actually perfectly, and up to today, kindergarten is for free. Take another example. All social services concerning, for instance, elderly people or people with disabilities that do not stay in shelters but stay at home. They have to have people, nurses that will come, they will do massage, they have food brought to them every day. just to give you one example, okay? All these services are organized by private associations, but are funded and financed by the city of Vienna, also an example of social entrepreneurship. So, and I could keep going forever, because actually the whole issue of social housing is social entrepreneurship. It is non-profit corporations that are independently organized, that operate on a commercial basis, as a matter of fact. They are non-profit in terms of that they're not allowed to extract profits. Profits have to remain within the company. As a result, because they're highly profitable, they have so much money right now that they do not even need subsidies anymore. In many cases, they could go on constructing for ages in Vienna without subsidies because it's such a highly profitable sector. So there are so many different types of public-private partnerships and also social entrepreneurship. But of course, from place to place in the world, it's a matter of structure. So, and one second thing I wanted to point out is this. We have a commission that meets about 3 times a year regarding all planned urban quarters, new urban quarters, and making a list of all types of infrastructure needed and the costs that go with it. So the list contains all large investment. And if you take a closer look at it, you will find out that what is costing most is public transport, then green spaces. Okay, these large, vast green spaces I have been showing cost clearly a lot to create. Then street infrastructure, general street infrastructure, is still one of the most expensive issues. And whatever other types of infrastructures go with it, okay? Now, we have in the end a list of all new urban quarters and all that this will cost to the different departments of the city. And then we commonly agree which ones are to be developed and which ones will wait for later, because we clearly cannot afford to do everything at the same time. But what I am proud of is that we have managed all these different departments to agree that when we agree upon 2 or 3 new urban quarters for next year, all of us will see to it that the money is reserved for that and goes there, and not somewhere else, which is an issue of governance, of cooperative governance, let's put it this way. And the second issue that is very important is we all agree that if we do not have enough money, we will not cut down on quality. We will just go about it a little bit later. And I think when we're talking about smart city initiatives, this is very crucial. Okay, we all have a lot to do, and we all have politicians who want things to be done immediately. I mean, look at me. Everybody laughs when I say, I need something from you. They will not even ask, when do you need it? They start laughing and saying, I know, and you need it yesterday, right? So, immediately, okay? But still, there is some point where you realize our budget is limited to a specific amount, and we cannot go about doing everything altogether. Then cut down on pace, do not cut down on quality. At least this is how we go about it in Vienna.
I'm interested in your company. How do you work? I mean, what is your organizational structure? Because I think it's kind of similar to the city development company like that we work in Thailand.
Yes, it's on. As I don't know your company, I want to say I think it's organized and operated like a commercial company. We do have tasks to fulfill. We know how much income we do have, and we have to plan for year by year or quarter by quarter what is the status of our business development. We do have a business plan and it's, I don't know what to say else. It's normally commercial.
How many departments do you have in your company? You have 25 employees, right?
Yeah, and that means we do have 3, and the smallest one is about 5 people. The others are 8 to 9, and it depends. We have grown in the last 1.5 years by 3 people, because we got new contracts, we got new tasks to do, and so we had to create more jobs in our company to fulfill these tasks. We don't want to grow and grow, because we are not this kind of classical market company. We are something like a little bit in between. But I think it depends on what is necessary for the next years. How could we reach new contracts with other cities? How could we develop our portfolio? This depends. I think it's normally market-driven in this kind.
So it means you have like project by project work or
We
routine?
We have projects which are really as projects financed, and we do have framework contracts, for example the ones with the city of Vienna regarding, for example, energy, all the questions of urban energy development. There's a contract with Maria Vasilaku for 3 or 5 years. We define together with the administration, who is the contractor on the other side, what kind of tasks do we have to do, and then we calculate on the basis of a commercial company. The day rate is about, for example, about 700 euro per day. That's our day rate. And this makes clear how much we have to afford for one project. If it's a small project, maybe 10 day rates are enough. If it's a big project, we need, for example, 150 day rates. That's our way how we calculate our services, our tasks, our products. If you, for example, write a report, if we only write it, maybe 40 pages, then it's maybe about 15 day rates. If we organize the whole process, as for example the monitoring around that, which means about 15 to 20 platform meetings with even about 10 to 20 people, then it rises to maybe 160 day rates. That's always on the base of a clear commercial calculation. The difference between a single project financing and the framework contract is that within the framework contract we have some security for a longer time period, and we don't have to fight always for little projects. That's the good thing if you have a framework contract. But we are not a subsidized company. We are a commercial company. If there are no questions anymore, I may thank you for your attention.
So, thank you, Ms. Maria Basilico and Mr. Eugene Azalovsky for the interesting and valuable information. And now I would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Kanin Tuhanuwat, the representative of our Ccio participants, to present a token of appreciation to our lecturer. Please welcome.
It's my great honor to have a chance to say a few words to our 2 distinguished guests from Vienna. Right? On behalf of our class of 2018, we would like to thank you indeed for sharing your great insights and invaluable experience with us. And this morning, we have another lecture, which quite complex and conceptual. So we're kind of looking for something tangible and become like concrete examples. And I think we found all of them in your lectures. And not only sort of outcomes as a great model or examples, but you also provide steps to get toward to achieve those examples. And as many of us are coming from many cities around the countries, which are located in different contexts around the nation. So I strongly believe that we all will be able to transfer the lessons we have learned from you in a very contextualized way to apply to different cities around Thailand. So please allow me to present both of you token of our great appreciations.